Okay. Hello. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning. Welcome to Connect Africa. So, actually, what we wanted is we wanted to start with this clip for you, and then we will be right there with you. Okay, just give me a second.
Today, we are witnessing across the world a revolutionary resurrection sparked by the demise of one black soul. The death of George Floyd has awoken the memories of the past brutalities and enslavement against the entire black race worldwide. The black race has always been undermined amongst nations. This has got me asking myself a question. Is it a crime to be black? If yes, then I'm proudly guilty, for I am one. Black lives truly matters. Hence, the loss of one soul has become the solution to the global deception that has halted economies, crashed educational systems, and interrupted the lives of all. This one soul has revealed the real pandemic, an unfolding crisis that our leaders of this world have made it to be. The death of George Floyd has simply become a cure. Freedom Jacob Caesar, I stand here today with the spirit of my great ancestors, the likes of Martin Luther, Marcus Garvey, Nelson Mandela, Kwame Nkrumah, and the Mansa Musas, and all the great souls who have fought for us in the past to gain our heritage wealth, our civil rights, and our freedom. To assure you in these hard times of trouble, Africa stands with you. Africa walks with you. And Africa matches with you. You are not alone. I am here. I am committed. I am focused. And we have a continent to build, a nation to save, and a culture to revive. Remember, the true value of this moment will not be treasured until it becomes a memory. Thank you.
Yeah, powerful. So, without further ado, let's go. Where Oops. Okay, I'm all over the place today. Sorry about that. Yeah, so our today's topic is that we are going to look at the election in Ghana. So we will look at about what were the promises during the elections that President Nana Akufo-Addo has promised, and how was his performance? Did he deliver in his 2 terms stay in office? And then who are the candidates, as he will not be elected for the 3rd time. Hopefully nothing will be amended, as this seems now it has become a trend in Africa to amend constitution for a 3rd time, but I hope not for Ghana. And certainly, what are the possible outcomes likely? So for this, we have the none other than Kwame Gonza here. Welcome, Kwame, once again.
Thank you very much, Mahlet, and greetings to everyone. Greetings to all those who are watching us from the United States, watching us from Europe, watching us from the Caribbean, and finally, those who are watching us from the motherland itself, the African continent. So we really appreciate everyone who was here and supporting the channel, supporting Connect Africa, and supporting, all those progressive forces, progressive people who are out there trying to fight for the African people and, of course, the black race in general, to try to bring about the respect that we deserve, and so that we can also be deserving for our place in the world. So thank you very much for those who are out there and supporting. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Kwame. So I am actually happy to share this with my audience, in which where you wrote an article on Kemet Media, which, by the way, belongs to the African Continental Unity Party, and you have assessed the performance of Nana Akufo-Addo at length. And yeah, so we might not be talking about it in detail, but it will give us a good background. So I'm going to ask you, first of all, I like how you start in the article saying that we should just for people not to fall in that trap every time, because our I don't know if this it's common maybe in Africa. Whenever a new government come, whether it's by election or whether it's by a coup d'etat or whatever, by force, every time we tend to criticize the former government for what they did. And not that they haven't done bad. I mean, there's always, I don't think there's a perfect person, but at least reason it out from in a way that it shows the surroundings or the circumstances, so you not for both sides, you kind of balanced it. So now, please tell us what were the promises Nana Akufo-Addo when he came to power that he promised, and how was his performance in general for Ghanaians?
Thank you very much, Mahlet. Maybe you can put it up a little bit so that people can see the title of the article itself. So when they see, yes, yeah, all right. That's what I was talking about. Yeah, so I think in this article, the topic today being the elections which are happening in Ghana, I thought that it is important before we talk about the candidates who who are contesting, who are in the race. It is important to look at what the government itself has done, the current government, because the current government itself has a candidate who is also an incumbent, is one of those contesting for power. So I think that is important to look at what the government has done, and that is the government of the president, Nana Akufo-Addo. So we assessed him on different levels economically, what he did achieve economically. First of all, we looked at the fact that we don't want to fall, what you mentioned, in the trap of criticizing because of convenience. All right. That particular period, later on, you find that a leader performed actually very well historically. People like Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, you remember that when he was removed, there was a lot of celebration. Some people celebrated during that period. But later on, we came to find out that President Kwame Nkrumah actually did very well for Ghana and even for the continent. So in assessing President Akufo-Addo, I didn't want us to fall into that trap of over criticizing someone who has really achieved something remarkable that will be remembered down history, memory. When we remember, after he has gone, we realize that okay, this guy performed very well, and even the criticism during his period when he left power, it was unwarranted. All right, so that trap there in assessing him, that is what we wanted to avoid, so that history, will be kind on us as it would be kind on him later on because of his achievement as a president. And I thought that this is very important. So we assessed him on economic, or at the economic level. We looked at the social level, and we looked at also foreign policy. We looked at his African policy, Pan-African policy, and we looked at him as a personality also. And so in the end, we came to look at the legacy. So the benchmark in this was Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Of course, we use Dr. Kwame Nkrumah as a benchmark to look at his, the performance of President Akufo-Addo. When he came to power, he promised a lot of things, that is going to transform the country. And one of the things that he mentioned very much was that uh, Ghana Beyond Aid. He had the policy which he called Ghana Beyond Aid, that Ghana was going to perform in such a way that it was going to be removed from receiving aid. All right, there's no reason why Ghana should continue to receive aid, and uh, Ghana has a lot of resources, which is true that there's a lot of resources. We are sitting, he said in his campaigns in 2016 that we are sitting on a lot of money. The money is there and the resources are there. There's no reason. So when he came to power, he immediately observed that it's not right for the Ghanaian people to be outside the economy, because there's a gentleman who is very rich in Ghana, who is one of the greatest statesmen in Ghana. It's called Sam Jonah. I think it's worth around $400 million. Has been complaining about the fact that the Ghanaian economy, the way it is structured, it is owned by foreigners. The core sectors of the economy, they are owned by foreigners. And I'll pick out the major exports of the country, which is oil, gold. All of them are controlled by foreign companies, majorly from Europe. Gold, oil, cocoa, in which people share a little bit. The general public shares a little bit, is in cocoa. But even the farmers, when you go to the villages in where the cocoa farms are, and you ask the farmers whether they have ever tasted chocolates, majority of them have never even tasted what chocolate is. So the cocoa itself, it is grown still in beans for the last almost 80 years or 100 years. What is grown is still exported to Europe, to Switzerland, for them to make chocolate. And all these countries, Germany, they are the ones who are benefiting from it. So there has been failure of processing. So this has created a situation whereby the structure of the economy has not been transformed. And this, President Akufo-Addo, actually, when he came to power, immediately noticed it and said that it is not right that the Ghanaian people are outside the economy. But the problem which we faced is that he never acted on it. So that is how we gauged him. And his policy of Ghana Beyond Aid was lauded. Even if you remember, when he came to power, many Pan-Africanists across the world, and even people of African diaspora, they thought that, okay, at long last, a leader who loves the African continent has come out and is going to defend the continent. You remember that he spoke back to Macron when I think they were in Accra. Spoke
I
back
was
to
going to say
Macron.
that went
Yes.
very viral. Yeah.
Yes. So he said that it is not right for Africa to continue to receive aid, all right, in this sense. But later on, we see that just a few days ago, Ghana received $360 million, which is part of around $3 billion, which was supposed to start last year, was started last year. So received that so-called aid. So you can see that this is somebody who has not lived up to expectations in this area of economics, of transforming the continent. Transforming the country economically. So there has been a lot of economic hardship. The currency has depreciated by around 300% since he came to power, which is ridiculous. The inflation has been way up there, 56%. A lot of hardship within the country. So adding that to the fact that the structure of the economy has not been at all touched. The banks, the financial sector within the country is owned majorly by foreigners. When he came, he collapsed a lot of indigenous banks and indigenous financial institutions. So this in itself has left a very huge gap in between his promises and the reality of what he delivered. So we looked at the education, which was his major policy in the country. When he came, the education, I think, was around 75% literacy rate. So he said that he's going to give free education to primary, I think, and secondary schools, which was a laudable policy. But when you look at it, and you examine the country at this particular level need more people in education, or it needed to improve the quality of education. Because when you see what is happening in Ghana, majority of the people who are educated, they are going out of the country. So this then shows you that the problem is not really education. You are producing enough educated people. What you need to improve is to improve the quality of education, not to improve the quantity. Okay, so what was needed in the education sector was rather uh, quality, improve the quality, maybe scientists improve the research and integrate the education institutions with the industry. Okay, this is what was really needed within the country, but he of course implemented that policy as one of his flagship policies. So you can see that even on the social aspect, he has not been able to come up, as expected. Now on the foreign policy part, he allowed the United States to have a military base in the country. All right, even though of course he claims that that this was started by the previous government, but you find that he approved the military base, the United States military base, which compromises the sovereignty of the country. Occupy for a foreign country to occupy your country. We have seen that in the Sahel, particular countries are pushing out France and pushing, in one way or another. Senegal is pushing out. So for him, he invited the United States to establish a military base at the main international airport of the country in Accra. So which is ridiculous in itself, that this is unacceptable. So or even on the foreign policy, you can see that he's lacking. He's not somebody who is there that he will make the country proud and the country occupy and oversize this space on the international stage to get that respect, because this is about respect. When you get your sovereignty, then you get respect before the rest of the world. So you can see that even on this level, there's lacking there in his performance. On the African level, his relationship with other African countries also is lacking. You can see that it is quite lacking, and this, of course, comes up that he was able to attend the U.S. Africa Summit of 2012, 2022. It was 2022, but we see that he is reporting Burkina Faso, to the United States Department of State, and saying that Burkina Faso is bringing in the Wagner group, who was the Russian military, mercenaries. But Burkina Faso, even though it is a neighbor to Ghana, never complained when Ghana under President Akufo-Addo brought in the United States mercenaries, which is the United States military. Burkina Faso never complained to anyone. So you can see that even on the relationship, even though he had good relationships within the ECOWAS, and we saw President Ramaphosa also visiting during the pandemic period, when the pandemic was ending. President Ramaphosa visited. He has been visiting various parts of the continent, especially on African matters. He has been visiting. He visited Uganda, visited Ethiopia for AU summits. So on that, you give him credit. But when it comes to really Pan-African brotherhood, there's a shortcoming in there, which something is lacking. So if you measure his performance to the level of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's policy, which was first of all towards Africa and making Africa proud, you can see that this a legacy is doubtful. President Akufo-Addo's legacy is very doubtful as a great leader who performed, because we think also that the challenge of our time as a continent is actually that of economic freedom, and on that front, you cannot see anything that he has done, because every generation, like Franz Fanon said, has its own mission. Every generation has its mission, and it must find that mission and fulfill it or betray it. So we strongly believe in the African Continental Unity Party that the mission of our generation is that of economic freedom. All right, liberation, economic liberation and freedom. Just like in the 40s, it was political freedom. All right, but of course, even along the way, political freedom or political independence was compromised, like in the 1960s, 1966, especially when Nkrumah was overthrown. That is why we see an overbearing United States and the West constantly interfering in the political affairs of the African continent. Hence, of course, the economic affairs. So even the politics itself was compromised, that the United States is constantly controlling African countries. So now here we have a challenge, that the challenge of our time is not really all these things Akufo-Addo he has been doing. He has not really touched the challenge of our time, like what Nkrumah did when Nkrumah came to power, immediately confronted the challenge of our time, which was political independence. And he said that independence in our lifetime, independence now, we want independence now. So you can see that he achieved on that and immediately sprang into action to start the reconstruction of Ghana, and hence the support of other liberation movements across the African continent. So now the question now then rises, did Akufo-Addo do what he's supposed to do in our generation? Did he confront the mission of our generation? And we found that his government has not really been able to confront the mission of our generation. So that is briefly, what I can say about his government before we look at the elections in detail.
It's interesting. Also, thank you for that. And what I found also interesting was, and made me to question, was that like how his appealing English language mastering made people somehow to believe. Do you think that played a role really to like kind of to trust him with what he said?
Yeah, I truly believe that it played a role, because people thought that maybe he knew how these systems work, he knew how the Western systems work, and therefore he will be in a position, to fight for the people. And the fact that he has been a minister before in previous governments, and also he has been around fighting for what he called democracy and human rights. So people expected a lot from him, and he presented himself as an anti-corruption candidate, somebody who doesn't like corruption. So there was a lot of expectations. So when you look at corruption index, the so-called corruption perception index by Transparency International, actually Ghana has done even worse, compared to when President Akufo-Addo, compared to before when President Akufo-Addo came to power. Ghana has rather slid further backwards when it comes to corruption perception index. Of course, we don't very much agree with this. We believe that there should be some sort of corruption, not perception, but rather corruption reality index. We believe that should be the right measurement of what is happening in various countries. But of course, according to current standards, that is what happened under his government.
Yeah, because I was thinking to myself, what if, he just speak only one of the local language? Why should we care? But of course, on the other side of it also, just to strengthen your point, it tells we care so much how we sell ourselves to the colonial powers, as opposed to what we do locally in our administration. Again, yeah, we are going to the main topic: who are the candidates and what are the possible outcomes? But I really want you to briefly, confirm it for them, for our audience, because I hear or read, I think somebody told me, like, who was a high official in Ghana once, that there are only two parties in Ghana, like Democrats and Republicans of the US, and where does Nana Akufo-Addo belongs? Yeah, just quickly, it will be good.
Okay, thank you, Mahlet, for that question. So there is what is called the New Patriotic Party, which President Akufo-Addo belongs to. It has put up a candidate who's currently the vice president in the country. And this vice president, when they were coming to power in 2017, 2016, 2017, they were campaigning. He was taunted as an economic messiah. Actually, they used to call him an economic messiah because he has a PhD in economics. And so they said that he was going to correct all the problems that are existent within the Ghanaian economy. He was going to help Akufo-Addo to correct all these problems. And that is even what President Akufo-Addo himself said, that the vice president, Mahmoud Bawumia, who is the current contestant, and is the one leading the New Patriotic Party, which is President Akufo-Addo's party, said that he was gonna do this. He was gonna help the country economically because he's an economic wizard, since he has served with the World Bank and International Monetary Fund and all these organizations, and he served also I think the World Bank in Zimbabwe. He worked in Zimbabwe or something like that. So they he was taunted as some sort of economic wizard that is going to come and correct a lot of things. And even when they came, they mentioned that he was gonna they were going to raise funds about about $11 billion from China to put up a lot of infrastructure and create a lot of jobs. There was a lot of optimism. Even myself,
You
I
mean
was
when Nana Akufo-Addo came?
yes. So
But
there was a
also, if
lot of
you can tell us historically how it is connected with the party of Kwame, and how, the party that belongs to Nana Akufo-Addo, where Nana Addo
yeah. So
belongs, where's
yeah. So yeah. So that
their
was the
historical parts.
yeah. So that was the optimism that was in the air during that period when they came to power. But
Okay.
the party itself, I think the party itself can be looked at as the Republican Party of Ghana. Okay, you can so because the Republican Party is from the United States, right? So the NPP, or the New Patriotic Party, can be said to be the Republican Party of Ghana. Okay, is similar to the Republican Party of the United States. So that is how they believe that they believe in what they call private ownership of property. I think that is what whatever that means, which has not been very much existent in our society. It has not been very much synonymous with African society, that has been private ownership of property, because even the property like land majorly was owned by chiefs and stuff like that. The community owned these land and property, which was the major property during that period. So they picked these things. They are actually a copycat from the Republican Party, that they are just parroting what the Republican Party is doing. And then on the other hand, and so that candidate, that is where he belongs. The Nanado candidate, who's called Baumia, Mahmoud Baumia, who's the current vice president, that is where he belongs. And of course, what he has said is that he wants to distinguish himself from the government he's serving in currently as a vice president, and saying that he's going to remove some of the policies which they implemented. Mind you, he is the chairman or the chairperson of the
The
economic
party.
management team. Yeah, so they instituted what they called the economic management team when they came to power in 2017. And so he's saying that policies like, for example, mobile transfer of money, transfer of mobile money, for example, using the phone, uh, is taxed, is currently taxed. I think, I don't know whether it is 10%, somewhere there. It is either 10 to 15%. I've forgotten the exact figure, but it is taxed, even though they tax you as a person on other things. If you are an employee of any company, you pay taxes like VAT and all the others. But at the same time, if you're transferring your money and you're sending it maybe to your mother or your parent or your friend, they again tax it. They come in and tax it, and they say is e-levy, electronic levy. They call it electronic levy, electronic transfer levy. So they brought this policy, and he has been distancing himself away from it. Yet he is the chairman of the economic management team in the country, and he has been saying that he's going to remove this. This is a bad policy, and to some extent, he has distanced himself from the economy, which is the major issue currently. And he's talking about digitization, how he's going to digitize the country and make everything driven by information technology. All right, IT, information technology. So everything is going to be driven by artificial intelligence and all this. So he has distanced now. He has presented himself as not a candidate of the economy, but as a candidate of advanced technologies, and yet he's not an expert in technologies. So that is the candidate of Nanado, and how he's presenting himself. And of course, the issue that is critical in this election, many are saying that it is the economy. All right. So we will see whether the results will say that at the end. And if this is the issue, if the economy is the issue, then he is likely to lose the election, because people are looking at the economy that is not delivering how they expected. And students have been going out of the country, educated ones, because they can't find jobs within the country. And so it has made their lives very difficult. Their parents, their lives have been made very difficult. Some of the parents actually have been telling their parents that if they go, they should not come back to this country. I remember there was a parent who said on in broad daylight on radio, they called him, they recorded him. He was telling the child, the son, that if you go out of this country, don't come back. Do not come back. Even if I die, do not come back. Don't come back to this country. because these people are wicked. They have destroyed the country. So, and he was talking about this government of President Danado. So you can see that all these things, they could play a role in how people are going to vote. Now, the second candidate, if I may move very quickly, is called President John Dramani Mahama.
So you are answering who are the candidates now already,
Yes,
yeah?
yes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, I think that's the question you asked.
Actually, I was trying to go to the direction because I read that and I heard this NPP party of Akufo-Addo is the one that throw away Nkrumah, and his
Yeah,
father
now so
belongs.
their ancestors, it
Uh-huh.
was called the party from which it came. It was called the National Liberation, I think, movement, NLM, National Liberation Movement, which was formed after the overthrow of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. So the ancestors of those who overthrew Kwame Nkrumah, they are the ones who later formed that party, which is called the NPP, from which President Akufo-Addo comes from. Yeah, so that is the history as it happened. And they were very confrontational even when Nkrumah was in power. They were giving him a lot of problems. He told them to come and work with him. They should come and build the country together. They decided to be in the confrontation, phase, on the confrontation side, so that they could make his life difficult. I think because of the reasons which had to do that, they brought Nkrumah back to Ghana. When they brought Nkrumah back to Ghana, Nkrumah realized that they were not interested in real liberation of the country and of the people. They rather wanted to replace the colonialists and lord it over the people, like what we call the bourgeoisie. So they wanted to be the new colonialists and subjugate the people. So this is what Nkrumah realized, and he left them and formed a different party. So they never forgave him because of that. They wanted him to be part of them as an elite. They wanted to be a new elite in the country and colonize the people in replacement of the British. So even model the country like a white country or some sort of like that. So this is what Nkrumah never wanted. For him, he wanted a country which was completely free and has an identity of an African, and it has an African identity. All right. So, and he mentioned even this at the formation of Ghana itself, or during independence in March 1957, that 1956, 1957, yeah, I think it was 1957, that he said that we are going to create our own African personality and identity. So this, they did not believe in it. The elite that period, they did not believe in it. They believed that being closely related to the whites was superior to what Nkrumah was saying, that he's going to create an African personality and identity. It did not make sense to them. So they were confrontational. So this is the party that we are dealing with, which President Nana Addo belongs to.
Sorry for the interruption. So now, just to remind our audiences, Kwame just described, because we have to move the second question, which is who are the presidential candidates. So he explained to us the first one, which belongs to the current ruling party, which is the New Patriotic Party, NPP, and he's currently serving as vice president of the party or the government of the party.
Yeah, of the government.
The government. Okay. So he's someone like favored or selected by the president himself, right?
Absolutely.
So, okay. So moving to the next candidate, who do we have? And just how many candidates we have so far?
Many. I can't tell you the whole number. I think there are more than 8. I don't know.
Okay.
There should be more than 8, but the main ones, I think, the main ones who we will talk about, I think there will be about 4. We'll discuss those ones who are in the mainstream currently, who are the top contenders. But there is others who are smaller candidates.
Okay. So yeah, tell us who is in the second.
Okay. Yeah. So in the second position, not in the second position particularly, but the second candidate is a candidate of what is called the NDC, national. I think it's called the National Democratic Congress or something like that. National Democratic Congress. Yeah. So the second candidate is President John Dramani Mahama, who is from the NDC, National Democratic Congress. The National Democratic Congress, I think you can look at it as a Democratic Party. of Ghana, which is the Democratic Party in the United States. So it's similar to that way. You know, they push a policy which they call social democracy, something that like that. But on the look of things, these two parties actually are the same. Both of them are neo-colonial parties who are not really pushing anything that is, you know, that is pro-Pan-African, that is pro-African in any way. They are pushing foreign interests. Like I said, President Akufo-Addo said that President Mahama, who's the one on the far left, is the one who started that registration or invitation of the United States military within within Ghana. So you can say that they really don't have anything that is really different in what they are doing, but rather they always play politics with the policies. They manipulate the policies. Like if you look at the policy of free education, which President Nana Addo capitalized on and got power, that policy is supposed to be socialist policy. People like the Republican Party in the United States, they don't believe in that particular policy. They don't believe in free things, whereby people should get free education, free healthy care. They believe that everyone should pay for these things. So for the NPP, which models itself after the Republican Party, you can see that it is manipulating people's minds so that it can be in power. So what I'm saying is that these two parties do not really represent anything African, but rather they represent foreign ideology. They don't have anything that is original, that is African in their orientation, that they are pushing maybe African liberation, economic liberation, but rather they are always parroting things like human rights and all these things which come from the West. At the core of them, there is really nothing that you can say can be identified with being African. So that is the second candidate, who is President John Dramani Mahama, who has been a president before, when he's the one who was toppled, when not toppled, but of course was defeated by President Nana Addo twice. He came and removed him from power. He was supposed to take a second term. So President Nana Addo defeated him and then defeated him again, recently, I think it was 2020. And then that's how President Nana Addo is in power. So that is the president who is coming back with his party to continue to challenge so that he can complete his second term, because he was a one-term president. So he's a top contender. Those two are the top contenders. But in addition, we have another gentleman who we played his video at the beginning. Is called Nana Kwame Bediako. He's an independent candidate, and he's one of those candidates you can say, okay, he's Pan-African in his outlook, at least a little bit from the start. I can't say because I don't know him very well, but
I am displaying their picture here. Is the one like on the far right, like
yes, on the far right,
like a young person.
Yes, he's the youngest. He's the youngest among them currently. So he has displayed in the past, like the video which we played there, he came out to talk about the issue of George Floyd, which is about 4 years ago in 2020 when George Floyd was killed by the United States. So he has been a little bit, you can say that he's pro-African in his approach. But when he comes, of course, to implementation is when we will judge, from the results, because sometimes, the talk is different from the actions. As we saw with President Ruto, he was talking a lot of things, but when it came to implementation, he was doing the opposite. So we have Nana Kwame Bediako, who's the youngest of them, and he's trying to upset the system and to present a new vision for the country. So he's presenting himself as a candidate who's against the status quo, just like how you see Donald Trump came through. Unlike Donald Trump, he is not presenting himself as a populist candidate, but rather he's speaking to how he's going to change the country, bring back the resources to the country, use the resources of the country for development, and capitalize on the advantages of the country. So that is the third candidate, Nana Kwame Bediako, who we started with. So as Pan-Africans, who would favor, somebody like him versus the two main political parties. So in the fourth candidate who we'll talk about today, as one of those ones who are main, is called Alan Chirimante. He's also coming as an independent candidate. He formed what he called the movement for change, something like that. So he came from the New Patriotic Party because he was a top contender with President Vice President Mahmoud Bawumia, who is the current flag bearer of the New Patriotic Party, and he was, not nominated. He was skipped, and they went to the other candidate. So he thought that he is the next in line to succeed Akufo-Addo because he has been working very hard for the party. So because of that, he was disappointed that he was not elected. He was not appointed, or to represent the party. So he broke off the party and started his own thing. He thinks that he can contend. So that is the one who's called Alan Chirmanteng. So these are the candidates, and he also is distancing himself from his party and saying that his party has not been doing well and stuff like that, even though he has been a minister in that in his party. So he's one of those people who have crafted the policies, or the bad policies which the party has implemented, but he's trying to distance himself from that party and say, oh, okay, I'm a different candidate, and therefore, if you give me a chance, I will do, a different thing in the country. Yeah, so that is what I can say about the candidates who are contesting. And the election is today, of course. People are voting in Ghana today. So in the next few days, we should expect the results to be out of who is the winner. So the elections, as I speak, I think they are currently being concluded.
It's really interesting to have, those independent candidates, but okay, I think muted. Definitely, people know, oh, okay, maybe they're trying, maybe next time they will make it. So what are the likely possible results, who have the high expectation? You are muted. Mute.
Yeah, so the two candidates are the ones who are being looked at as the possible contender. That is the NPP, the usual parties, which are like the Democratic Party and the Republican Party in the United States, which is the New Patriotic Party and the National Democratic Congress. They are the ones who are being looked at as the ones who are going to produce the president. So we have two scenarios here. If people are going to vote on the economy and how the economy has been performing, it is likely that the NDC candidate will win, who is the John Dramani Mahama, who is a former president himself, has been a president before. So it's likely that he will be re-elected. But if people forget the economy, that they forget how biting the economy has been since 2020, with the re-emergence, with the emergence of COVID-19 and all the things which have been around there. Of course, the ruling party blamed the deterioration in the economic conditions on COVID-19 and the war in Ukraine. But of course, many economists have come out to debunk this narrative, and have said that it is not, the Ghana's economy was not affected by the war in Ukraine, because even Ukraine itself, which is fighting the war, and Russia, they are actually doing better than Ghana economically. So if Ghana is not fighting the war, how do you then claim that is the war in Ukraine which is affecting Ghana's economy? So this narrative has been debunked. So if people are going to elect based on the economy, then it's likely that they will elect the National Democratic Congress candidate, who's John Dramani Mahama, the former president. But if they do forget it, and they are not voting based on the economy, then it's likely that NPP will come back and win the vote. Their candidate will win the vote. If his narrative, let us say the people decided to vote and accept his narrative, then the NPP is likely to win the vote. The third scenario that would happen is that the elections might go to the second round, because of the fact that there is a new candidate who's causing quite a lot of stir, who is the independent candidate, who is Nana Kwame Bediako, because the young people may choose to vote him, because people are looking at these two parties. There's a lot of disappointments. I've spoken even to my neighbors, and many of them are disappointed with the two parties. So you can see that this young man is likely also to get some amount of votes. Even if he gets 5% of the vote or 6% of the votes, it's likely to cause an effect that it could, cause a second runoff. Then the other candidate who broke off from the national, from the New Patriotic Party and decided to run as an independent, also he could take some of the votes from the two parties. He could get sympathy. People could get sympathetic to him, and they could vote for him. So this could push the elections into a second round, whereby it would not be a one-touch victory for one candidate. So this is the scenario that which we have currently, that we could face within the country.
Okay, yeah. So this is either the one who has been president before will get it, which is not from the current ruling party, or the person, this young man who is independent, with unintended cause, he might, like unintentional votes, he might get, because people are just tired with it too. Yeah, there's such a thing in vote, true. Yeah, but that is really interesting. In a way, it doesn't seem, are people enthusiastic? They're out. What does the number look like? Or they're just tired, we don't even vote, like it doesn't
Yeah, so
matter?
I think people have come out to vote, but the real numbers of how many people voted, I think they will come later on to see the percentage, because we'll compare with the registered voters and the numbers which have come out to vote, how many votes have been cast. So that is where we will know really the right picture. But at least in the media, they have shown that many people were traveling to go to their villages to vote, to cast a vote. And some of the political parties also provided free transportation for people who want to go out to their villages to vote. So this is the scenario. But the real numbers, I think, the percentage of those who have voted, and whether it has declined or gone up, it will come out after elections, and when the Electoral Commission publishes how many people voted for all the groups.
Thank you, Kwame, for that. Really, hopefully, Ghana and Ghanaians get what they deserve. That will take, Ghana to a better place, because Ghana holds a lot of symbolism for many Africans, and we want Ghana to do well. Flagging that high flag of Kwame Nkrumah, and there is a lot of also emotional attachment. So we really want Ghana to strive. But so we will see the result, because always our people, as Bob Marley says, they do the sweet talk, and in terms of deliveries, they're not there. They always disappoint us. So speaking of that, let's take a bonus question. Also, look, we set up a goal today. I set up a goal when we start, so that people can donate with super thanks, just with a minimum amount, €2. But so if 10 of you have done, then we will host a question and answer session. But I haven't seen anyone, but that still will not prevent us from doing what we love to do. If you can, please go ahead and donate. It's €2. And of course, if you find what we bring you here relevant, I'm going to ask a bonus question, meaning it's not something that we even plan. So the African Continental Unity Party, last time we were here, we made a big session, a very 2 hours program. And, as a political party, when do you see yourselves coming, as the African Continental Unity Party, to election? How long? I know there are a lot of things
Yeah.
to be done.
So the plan is to contest in the next elections, which is going to be 2028. The African Continental Unity Party is planning to put up a candidate, but even during this period, we have two candidates who are running for as members of parliament in at least
Okay,
two regions. Yeah, so the
great.
African Continental Unity Party is come to stay. It has come to stay, and it has come to play on all grounds, on all levels. So we are open to all options, as long as those options regard to the liberation of the continent, politically and economically, because we believe that politically we have been compromised. The political independence itself has been compromised, and of course, the economic independence is non-existent. So our money is controlled from Washington, the dollar. Every time they speak about the dollar, then we have problems and stuff like that. So the African Continental Unity Party is going to contest, for presidency in 2028, and we are preparing for that. But currently, we have two candidates who are, contesting for, as MPs, and we have one actually who is expected to win and go to
Wow.
parliament.
Great. No, that's a good news. We have a question from the chat section. Will the newest citizens get to vote as well? I think she or he is referring to those
Yeah,
diasporas.
definitely. I think that they will vote, but I think not this time because they may not have registered since they just got their registration as
Oh,
citizens
okay.
of the
Yes,
country.
that
Every
makes
citizen
sense.
has a right to vote. So I think that they will need now to register with the Electoral Commission, and in the next elections, they will be able to vote, at least according to the laws. That is what it is. So, yeah, so that's what it is.
Great. No, so thank you so much. I think we should end it there. Yeah, and that's it. Thank you all for showing up, for your time, for your dedication, for your suggestion, comments, and thank you, Kwame, as well, for this. We have planned the Biden visit, and I know we did a program. I did a program, but people, of course, wants to know your perspective of Biden's visit in Angola, although it has been 4 or 5 days. So hopefully we'll do it soon. And yeah, with that being said, good luck with all the election and to the African Continental Unity Party who are running for MP. And that's it. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ciao.